What's going on, guys? Brandan Fokken here, real athlete. I'm an IFBB pro, writer, speaker, online trainer, and many, many other things. But I am sitting here speaking with somebody that knows a whole heck of a lot more about this product and about nutrition than I do. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Greg Grochoski. I'm the Chief Science Officer for Twinlab.
Okay. Well, you, sir, and I have been able to talk a little bit, and I've been on some calls with you. And you've got a wealth of knowledge to share with the people out there. And, you know, with a new product like this, obviously we've got to overcome some hurdles when it comes to the education of what a product actually does, because there's so many companies out there that are putting products out there with no testing, with no research, slapping a label on it, charging $59.95, and, you know, the mass majority of those products just don't work, which I think you'd probably attest and agree to, right?
Yes, I think your characterization is very on.
Yes. So let me go ahead and ask you a couple questions that we have for you. First of all, what does REAL do?
Well, Brandon, how long do you have today?
Well, we've got all the time in the world, but at the same time, we want to keep our viewers watching this. So let's keep it as short as possible, but as much information as we can pack in.
Let's distill it down. It does an awful lot, but the most significant statement about it is that it builds muscle better than anything we've ever encountered. Okay. And we've encountered quite a lot.
Okay.
The synthesis of muscle is a particular body function, and tuning into the optimization of how the body does that took a lot of research, took a lot of trial and error, and resulted in a couple of patents and a couple applied for, and REAL builds muscle better than anything we've ever seen.
Okay. So, I mean, you've obviously been around quite a while. You've seen all these products come out. You know, the last big product I would say out there, you know, to build muscle and strength was creatine. It's probably the number one studied product out there, and probably the best known. Do you foresee the REAL product overstepping the creatine wagon, so to speak, as far as popularity and usage with athletes out there?
Actually, I do, Brandon. Creatine deals with a particular set of circumstances in building muscle. Yep. REAL and its essential amino acid technology is right at the fundamentals of building muscle. All the other things you can do with creatine and other things are secondary to the fundamental process of how the RNA directs the body to assemble amino acids and make muscle protein that becomes the fibrils, become the actual muscle. And so if you can tune up or make more effective the fundamental process, then it's actually it enhances everything else you might do. It's not necessarily in competition with everything else you might do, but it sets the base at a higher level.
Okay. So, you know, people make that comparison between BCAA'S, whey protein. Is it really a better product than the two of those?
It is, when we're talking about building muscle. Okay. The synthesis of muscle starts with assembling the right amino acids, and so for that to happen, the right amino acids have to be present in the right place at the right time in the right amounts. Okay. And that's what all of this research led to, was finding out which amino acids and in which relationships, so that that whole process is optimized. So if you take whey protein, which is probably one of the best proteins around, it is certainly a highly regarded protein, and we regard it highly. It's an important part of this industry. It's an important part of life. It has a protein quality score of about 1.3 on the new DIAAS schedule. This particular REAL formula has a 3.21. It's the highest score we've ever seen. So when you look at quality of the protein, which speaks to its ability to do the processes that we're talking about in building muscle, you can see the distinction in there. The REAL is orders of magnitude greater than all the best proteins we've ever seen.
Okay, so here's kind of a trick question for you. So if you were to take a whey protein, which they usually fortify them with BCAA'S, often in our industry, and instead fortified it with essential amino acids, would it be a superior product on the whey protein side, or would the essential amino acids still be better taking them alone, as opposed to combining it with a whey protein?
That is a really great question. Yeah. EAAs in the right formula, such as REAL, which is why it's patented, it's those ratios that are patented, is going to give you a better result. Now, when the body is processing all this stuff, taking the REAL at the right times, as we have in our instructions for use, will give you the optimal results. But this is so fundamental and so powerful, it will enhance the results at any time in combination with anything else you're taking in the way of proteins. Okay. And so it'll enhance the whey protein, but with our use instructions, you'll get the optimized results. We're not saying don't use whey protein. Whey protein is a great source of all the amino acids, but you have to understand that when your body is active, or actually it's active even when it's sleeping, amino acids are being released into the bloodstream, and they're being either turned into waste products and excreted, or being reutilized to build muscle. REAL helps to harvest those amino acids being released, and it incorporates new dietary amino acids to optimize the building of new muscle. It's its ability to work with both that which is coming out of the body's use and breakdown of muscle, and with the dietary sources of amino acids to optimize the results. And that's why it's, if you run it in a clinical study or multiple clinical studies as we have, it's about 3 times the amount of muscle built using REAL than there is with whey protein, and more than 32 times, in some studies, infinitely better than BCAA'S in assisting in building muscle. So it's not an either-or kind of a thing, but there isn't a circumstance we've seen yet where REAL doesn't make it better.
So if you were to combine the REAL with the whey protein, because REAL is, it has specific ratios, would the whey protein in any regard throw off the product?
There's a secondary mechanism that's going on in the body where we have a transport system. Amino acids are absorbed through the gastrointestinal tract and then are into the bloodstream and absorbed. Well, the transport systems have limitations. And so, for instance, particularly with the BCAA'S, where you totally overload with certain amino acids, they occupy sites on those transports that frankly don't need to be occupied by those at the time, because they're out of proportion with the other amino acids that have to be available for the actual synthesis of the muscle. And so that's why ratio optimization in REAL causes the optimized effects. And so, like I said, anytime you take a REAL, it's going to improve the circumstance you're in. Take it in the way we've, in our directions, use instructions on our product, you get the optimal results. So generally, what would that be for a sedentary person who isn't out doing, really strong exercises or strong work, things of that sort? Maybe an office worker that occasionally goes out and does a little bit in the yard or takes walks or whatever. It's to take those REAL doses between meals, because that's when it's going to harvest what's being released in the way of amino acids from the body itself and whatever's coming in dietarily speaking. If you're a very vigorous athlete, let's say an aerobic athlete, then because there's so much oxidation that goes on of the amino acids during that process, you want to take those doses of REAL just a little after, up to an hour after your exercise, a couple doses within an hour after your exercise. And that's when, again, you'll optimize. But even if you took REAL before that aerobic exercise, you'd be in a better place. It's just you're going to be in the absolutely best tested place if you take it under the use instructions that we give. I haven't seen a circumstance yet, Brandon, where taking REAL was a negative on any of these outcomes. It was always a positive, and what we're talking about here is how you make it the optimal positive.
Okay. Myself, I've been the whey protein and iso whey and whatnot for 20 years. And, it's kind of been that product that, bodybuilders and fitness, enthusiasts always go back to. We like it. We know about it. We like the taste of it. And I've replaced all of it with the real product. And a lot of my clients, I'm a trainer, I've had a lot of them replace their whey protein too. So many people, obviously, it's extra calories, it's extra protein, the bloat, all that stuff. And I experience a lot of that myself. I fast, actually, in the morning. And I don't eat until about lunchtime. So the second I wake up in the morning, I do a scoop of REAL. And then I do it again post-workout. And I can tell you, from my perspective, and I'm my own scientist. I like to mess around with things. I tried it pre-workout, during, post, everything. I want to see how I feel and what my body does. And, I was having 2-3 shakes a day. And I cut all of that out about 6 to 8 weeks ago and have done just REAL. And I have actually had more muscle gain. The look of my muscles has also changed, which is odd because, I've been at this a long time. So there's obviously something going on there. And the people that I've also put on the product are similarly taking it the same. They're either doing it post-workout, pre-workout, or together, or if there's a time of the day they're not eating, they're implementing it, and they're seeing great results too. And for an athlete and a trainer and whatnot, it's such a great tool that I'm so excited to use in the future, and introduce it to people out there that either can't handle, large amounts of protein or, are bloated all the time, regardless if it's soy, whey, pea or whatever protein, because I have had clients that have had those issues. But, I think as we continue to go, people are going to see just how great of a product this is. And I'm obviously already sold on it. If I wasn't, we wouldn't be talking right now. The two questions I get a lot is, why don't branched-chain amino acids work on their own? Because obviously for the last 10, 15 years, everybody's been filling their water jugs up with BCAA'S and their green and blue liquid and walking around, drinking it because they want to kind of show, hey, I'm a fitness person. And in their head, they're thinking they're getting all these great results. So one, why doesn't it work by itself to the regard that an essential amino acid does? And then also people always ask, well, how can I take such a small amount of an essential amino acid and it stacks up to a serving of whey protein? So those are the last two questions I actually have for you. So go ahead and give us your thoughts on that.
I'm laughing because this is where I could, and would love to spend an hour, so I'll try to condense it down. The thing with BCAA'S was, I think, a reasonable hypothesis. Researchers looked at what's in muscle and what's the ratio of things, and said, well, it seems like if you put more of those branched chain ones in, they would do some really good. A reasonable hypothesis. What Dr. Wolf's work found, and that's over 40 years of trying to decode all this stuff, is that the body looks at it and says, I need to build a muscle protein. And to do that, I need to assemble all the amino acids in the right order and in the right amounts. And BCAA'S are only 3 of the essential amino acids, of which there are 9. And so if you really overload with BCAA'S, and the body goes to build a muscle, says, oh, where are the other 6? And so when it starts to lay them down on the code that it's given, when something's missing, it just stops, and then the whole process, goes awry. And that's why in the research that Dr. Wolf, in fact, I don't know if you've seen that paper, but Dr. Wolf actually did put a very authoritative paper on this. Yep. It recited all the known peer-reviewed literature on the subject of BCAA'S and muscle synthesis, always an interesting word to say, and then his work and what he found. And the conclusion that he cites in that paper, and this is a peer-reviewed paper, and it was last year at the International Society of Sports Nutrition, is that BCAAs don't increase muscle synthesis because they simply can't. They're not the whole story. In some of the studies, what they saw was a decrease, actually, because the BCAAs in such high concentrations were clogging up that transport system, where the small amounts of the other EAAs that might be around weren't able to get to the sites in time for the right configuration to actually build the muscle protein. And so if you ask me, and you did, do BCAAs work? I say yes. The only problem is they don't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
And, they're busily in there. I mean, they're working away, but when it comes to did you really get some more muscle out of it? No, you didn't. And this is a great paper. I can send you a copy. It's available online. It's like I said, it's peer reviewed. It's published. There are a lot of theories about BCAAs, and they're part of the story. But if you don't have the rest of the story, which is the rest of the essential amino acids, you just don't build muscle with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So then on the smaller amount, when you make those comparisons, you have the standard consumer that they everything in the U.S. is bigger. They supersize drinks and supersize fries and this, that, and whatever. So to go from, a heaping scoop of protein to this tiny little serving of REAL, it mind boggles people. They're like, well, how can I get better results off of taking a smaller scoop? So what's the most simplistic answer you can give those consumers on why less is better?
Less is better in the case of REAL because it's everything you need to build muscle and nothing you don't. And so whenever you take any of these other proteins or gelatins or things that have amino acids in them, you're getting a lot of stuff that isn't going to be utilized. So that's calories, that's bloat, that's volume, it's all those things, but it isn't usable for making muscle. Everything that's in REAL is usable in exactly the right ratio, no waste, to build muscle, and REAL has this capability, because of that, to draw out and reutilize the amino acids that are being released in the body from the breakdown of muscle. And so it's both the way it goes about building, but also the way it goes about conserving the amino acids that are already present. And that makes it a very powerful thing. When we look at fractional synthetic rates on the various things, and that's a measure of muscle building capability, REAL is running about 6 times greater than anything else we've seen because of the mechanisms that I just talked about. And that's all lab punch biopsy of muscle studies that Dr. Wolf and Dr. Ferrando have performed.
Okay. This is kind of I'm throwing out a lot of extra questions because as we talk, they pop into my head, and I'm sure, again, the consumer out there has all sorts of questions, but I tend to think of some of the most odd questions when it comes to stuff. So when we're looking at the REAL product, there's 40 years of research, there's all these clinical studies, there's so much that goes behind it. And obviously, with something like that, the work just doesn't stop. Do you think we're at a place where this is a perfect product, or do you think that they're going to continue to enhance this in the future? Do you think there's going to be other avenues that'll open up where they're going to be like, okay, if we add it to this, it'll do this, or vice versa?
I think the fundamental ratio that's expressed in the patent is going to hold as the best available for a very, very long time because it was so deliberately and long-term determined and then validated. However, I think that the applications, and so the dosing, let's go across a range of conditions, a range of ages and medical conditions and that sort of thing. Are there optimizations in there for those things where elements that are going on with those individuals are different than, let's call it, the average person? Yeah, I believe that. And we're seeing that, not to be announced, nothing to pronounce, but there are clinical studies continuing in the area of liver disease and sarcopenia, which is, for the elderly, the inability to process protein and get the amino acids to build muscle. All of those compartments have space for optimization and greater applications of this base technology. So, yeah, I see this as a next 20 years continuing evolution of applications and optimizations and clinical validations. This isn't all over. This is actually just started.
So basically, I mean, we're looking at the baseline of the product, kind of like a DNA strand. And, with that, you can obviously build so many great things, but it's more about the dosing and everything else as opposed to changing an actual product. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, for sure. And also other materials that might be used along with this base amino acid technology that would bring other effects in the body, not necessarily all direct muscular effects, but things that knock on the muscle building process. And so it's a wide open range for research and additional technology and additional patents and additional consumer products. I'm absolutely excited about it.
Well, definitely when you create something, obviously that's your baby and you want it to continue to grow. It's like you don't usually create something and then just leave it be. You obviously build upon it, and there's a lot of other things out there right now. CBD, for instance, is really hot in the market, and they're looking at all these different applications for it. There's not really any studies per se behind it like this, but there's a lot of people out there saying, well, it does this, 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 and this, and this, without the research. Well, we've got the research, we've got the studies, we've got all that shows it does this, and I hope it to be that next trend sooner than later. I know it's going to be, but I hope that people pick up on it much, much sooner than they have with some products that are released into the market, where it kind of takes people just a little bit longer to pick up on it. Because I personally think that, there are other applications, and I honestly think that besides building muscle, I think it does other things. I mean, things that we probably haven't studied or looked into, but I have that true belief that this product has a lot more benefit than just building muscle. And that's my personal opinion, and that's from using the product for as long as I have. But it's something that I truly think, and I'm kind of excited to see as we start to test more on different applications what else this product can do. So,
yeah, I agree. It's a wide open possibilities.
The last thing I got for you, now you said this can kind of help in any situation. So when my wife's mad at me for not taking out the trash or something, if I were to take a scoop of REAL, is everything going to work out and be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Everything's better.
Exactly.
When you're feeling good, Brandon, everything else in your life has a better base to work from. Now, I'm not going to say that you won't be sleeping on the couch, but at least you won't be sleeping in the doghouse.
I sure hope not, actually. So, well, awesome. I know that we're going to get on here. We're going to do this more often, and I'm going to have a whole, line of questions for you the next time. But obviously, we wanted to keep this a little shorter as a first video that we put out to people. I want to thank you for your expertise and your time. It's been a joy chatting with you, and I definitely look forward, to the future with this product, with this company, and speaking to you again here in the near future.
Well, likewise, and I raise my glass of REAL.
I don't have any in here. I just had it after my workout.
Thank you. Always available to you. Just let me know.
Awesome. Thank you very much. You have a great day.
You too. Bye now.